Welcome back, Behavioral Addictions. Today, I'm going to keep this short because I only want to check one box, the insight box. Insight is the capacity to gain an accurate and deep intuitive understanding of a person or thing. It is perception, awareness, and discernment. In psychiatry, it is a client coming to new or deeper understanding of themselves. All the freedom and opportunity in the world does us no good if we cannot see what we are free to do. When we do not see the forking paths in front of us and the personal value of taking the more difficult ones, then we behave the same as if they weren't there, or the same as if we had no freedom. Other boxes one could try to check off with a lecture on behavioral addictions should not at this point in the course be necessary to check off. If you've made it this far in the addictions course, you have already done a lot of thinking and relating the concepts to yourself. Thanks to the paradox of values, you already know what is meaningful to you, even if you behave as if you do not. You do not need me to frame behaviors as good or bad, technologies or habits as powerful, or your will as weak. It's actually not. Your own behavioral experience checks these boxes for you. You are capable of lecturing yourself, provided you have observed yourself. And by now, you have at least started to observe yourself. What do you mean my will isn't weak? Have you met me? Didn't you read in my assignment how I spend 3 hours per day on my phone and 2 hours per day streaming shows? How I can't stop checking for messages and obsessing about responses to my social media posts, even when I'm in the shower? How I lie to my significant other about the time I spend playing League of Legends? How it takes nearly all of my effort just to sit and read 5 pages of a textbook? Yes, I do mean that your will is not weak. It's just poorly used. This misunderstanding of will is why I don't like the concept of willpower. But since I've covered that in other courses, including Intro, here's a different sort of illustration. There are some things that you are used to doing and feeling. These are habits, or more generally, habits of mind. You are likely used to procrastinating, i.e. rewarding yourself for turning away from difficulty. You are likely used to near-instant satisfaction and having access to near-instant relief from worry or wonder. Let's start with the evolutionary psych idea that even bad habits have good reasons. Plenty of bad habits of mind are there because they protect us from things, from sadness, from loneliness, from failure, and it is a good thing to be protected from failure. But let's add a basic psychodynamic observation. The problem with our imperfect psyche is that the habits it uses to protect us are as likely to protect us from awareness of our sadness, loneliness, and failure as they are from actual sadness, loneliness, and failure. How could I possibly be sad, lonely, or a failure when I just rescued the princess from Bowser? Or more phenomenologically, how could I possibly experience myself as those things, be mindful of those things, have any interest in addressing those things when I just rescued the princess from Bowser? With behavioral addictions, where you can give yourself your data about what your habits are actually protecting you from, what they are actually doing for you, you can give yourself nearly all you need to change. Mindfulness of this sort will start to change how you experience your behaviors, provided you can keep aware and stop yourself from turning away from your data. You will set yourself right through rather natural processes of changing valence and valuation. Mario Kart just isn't as much fun when you are aware of what you are doing and not doing in that moment. A push notification is not as alluring when you consider and value what it is taking you from. But you must collect and encounter your data. Recall that life and your opportunities to contribute to it are fleeting, and be honest with yourself about what you love and value.
When the world is on your shoulders, just smile and let it go. If people try to put you down, just walk on by, don't turn around. You only have to answer
Wait, you're not going to tell me that video games rot my brain? Or phones are worse than cocaine? Or that my level of sex drive is a mental illness? Or Generation ADHD is doomed? Or the internet is making us dumb? Or that social media destroys love? No, if you need to believe those or similar things, then you already do, or you will, provided you collect and honestly encounter your data. What I will offer here are 3 very much overlapping but uniquely useful concepts, and permission to apply them to whatever behaviors you want, because humans with our absurdly overdeveloped neocortices can be addicted to pretty much anything. Here are some prevalence rates for things with high enough prevalence rates for them to be worth reporting. If you want diagnostic criteria, just replace gambling with your behavior of choice and adapt the criteria from the DSM-5's only non-substance addiction diagnosis, though a slightly simpler set of criteria to adapt would be found in the appendix. They are the criteria for another DSM-5 behavioral addiction, internet gaming disorder. Preoccupation with the behavior, negative feelings in its absence, needing more and more of it, failed attempts to control the behavior, loss of interest in other things, use despite social consequences, lying about use, using to escape poor moods, and potential lost opportunities due to use. Adapting these criteria is what the researchers do now when they assess things like Facebook addiction, cell phone addiction, sex addiction, etc. Some highlights of those researches include strong arguments for considering the following to be addictive: any games involving chance or betting, acquisitive behavior like buying or stealing, avatar internet games, especially massive multiplayer online role-playing games, sex, exercise, social networking sites, and of course, smartphones.
Hide the telephone, telephone in case you realize that sometimes you're just not okay. You level up, and it's not alright now. You need to understand, there's nothing strange about this. You need to know your friends.
CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, has been studying, quote, problematic use of electronic devices for a few years now. Some symptoms it is tracking are here, but the 3 overlapping but uniquely useful concepts I have for us are impulsion, compulsion, and addiction. These refer to different concepts and different categories of disorder in the DSM-5. An impulse is a push from your body to do something without thinking it through. An example of an impulse control disorder is kleptomania, repeatedly acting on impulses to steal. The diagnostic criteria for kleptomania are shown here. It is rare, 0.3 to 0.6% of the US population, with a 3-to-1 female-to-male ratio, but a good example of impulsion. If you have ever caught yourself checking your phone when it is rude or unsafe to do so and felt that it kind of happened on its own, that would be an example of impulsion. If you have ever interrupted your own rational argumentation with a quick action, oh, I shouldn't eat any more nom, that would also be impulsion. It is very important, if you experience impulsions, to set up your environment in such a way that does not trigger them. If someone puts out a bowl of chips, for example, I will eat it. I will eat it all because it is there. My cosmic destiny is to eat chips if I encounter them out in a bowl. Do you know why these low-calorie cookies exist? Is it to sell low-calorie cookies and make money? These exist because of an operant conditioning war that cookie companies are winning. Basically, consumers learned that they could stick to their diets by not walking down the cookie and chip aisle in the grocery store. Most cookie sales, though, come from a small percent of people who eat boxes of cookies every week. So if the companies lose those customers, they lose big money. The customers are applying good operant conditioning principles. They're controlling their contingencies. They're not walking down the cookie aisle. But the cookie companies have market research people that track physical movement. They know whether people are walking down the cookie aisle or not. And they've got psychology PhDs to figure out how to get that foot traffic where it needs to be. So what did they do? Well, since cookie sales are driven by people walking down that aisle and being overwhelmed by impulsion to buy multiple boxes of cookies, cookie companies needed something to draw the big impulse buyers into that aisle. And these 100-calorie cookies are just that lure. In other words, these boxes are made to sell other boxes of cookies. This is the same idea behind all the random new flavors of things that nobody asked for. The point is not to sell you mint Oreos. The point is to get you to buy normal Oreos or something else on that shelf impulsively, while your rational brain is occupied by looking at that green leaf and trying to calculate what kind of a market there could possibly be for mint Oreos. Contrast impulsion with compulsion. In the case of impulsion, we wanted the cookies. We wanted to look at the phone. In the case of compulsion, we may be compelled to do something we would actually say we would not want to do. If you ask a hoarder whether they want to keep 10 years worth of old newspapers, they will probably say that there are just lots of reasons why they have to keep them, not that they want them. This should bring to mind from Lecture 2 the impulsive and the compulsive stages of addiction. The impulsive stage being driven by reward craving, and the later compulsive stage being driven by a desire to avoid negative affect, such as withdrawal. Hoarding disorder is one of the obsessive-compulsive and related disorders in the DSM-5. It has a US prevalence of around 2 to 6% and affects more males than females. If you have ever felt like you needed to complete a set of something, or to beat a world or level of a game because it's the only one you haven't beaten, or to get 10 new followers this week because you got 10 new followers last week. In these examples, the accomplishment isn't necessarily that pleasurable, but the failure to accomplish it would bring displeasure. The general model for addiction is that one's motivation goes from impulsive to compulsive, and there are sufficient consequences to be called clinically significant. Hopefully, you are developing your own idea of what is clinically significant, and you are graduating from needing the DSM criteria to tell you what an addiction is, to using your own judgment and having confidence with the concepts and judgments involved. At the risk of breaching ethics, here are some tips for how to make something addictive. First, remember to place your reward after the stimulus being conditioned. This will lead to the conditioned stimulus having the emotional response of the reward. The same rule goes if it's a behavior that is being conditioned. Increase the difficulty or the required engagement gradually, and reduce the reinforcements for that engagement gradually. Include random rewards for things like exploring, and have close, medium, and distant goals to keep the person engaged. Wait a second. All these principles could be used to instill good habits. Yes, they can. That's enough for now. Your homework is to assess a behavior of yours by adapting the Internet Gaming Disorder criteria. Are you diagnosable? How much clinical judgment did you have to use to deal with ambiguity of the criteria or of your reality? Treatment Essentials next time. Stay tuned.